I never thought my life would unravel in a single moment. That's the thing about betrayal. You never see it coming, especially when it comes from the people you trust the most. I was 26, living what I thought was a pretty decent life. Good job, a fiancé I adored, and a family that, while flawed, was still mine. My younger brother, Eric, had always been the golden child. He could fail at anything, and my mother would still find a way to defend him. Meanwhile, I had to work twice as hard just to be acknowledged. It was the way things were, and over time, I had learned to accept it. When I met Lily, I felt like I'd finally found someone who saw me for who I really was, not just the responsible one, not just the guy who always had to clean up after everyone else's mistakes. She was kind, smart, and beautiful. We met when I was helping build a community center downtown. She worked as a volunteer coordinator. She loved kids, wanted a big family, and when she said yes to my proposal, I thought I had it all figured out. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The late nights she spent at my parents' house even when I wasn't around. The way she and Eric had these little inside jokes that I wasn't part of. The way my mother always seemed too enthusiastic about their friendship. But love makes you blind, and I was too busy planning a future to see what was happening right in front of me. It all came crashing down on a rainy Tuesday in April. I had an early meeting get canceled, so I decided to surprise Lily with lunch. I picked up her favorite, pad thai from the little place around the corner, and drove home, excited to spend an unexpected afternoon together. Eric's car was in the driveway. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe he had dropped by to borrow something, or maybe he was helping her with something in the apartment. But when I saw the way the curtains were drawn, when I noticed the front door was unlocked despite her always being so careful about security, something in my gut twisted. I stepped inside. The sound of music drifted from our bedroom, a song I knew too well. Our song. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in the entryway, my mind refusing to process what my body already knew. Then I moved. Up the stairs, past the discarded clothes on the floor. My breath was shallow, my vision tunneled, my pulse hammering in my ears. I pushed open the door. And there they were. Lily, Eric, in my bed. The moment they saw me, a silence fell so thick it suffocated the air in the room. Eric, my own brother, had the audacity to look shocked. Lily gasped, yanking the sheets up around her, as if that could somehow erase what I had just witnessed. I didn't scream. I didn't throw punches, though every part of me burned with the urge to. I just stared at them, letting the weight of the moment crush whatever was left of my heart. And then, I turned and walked out. I don't know how long I sat in my truck, the rain pounding against the windshield, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they went numb. At some point, Eric left, slinking away like a coward. Lily came out next, standing in the doorway, calling my name, crying, trying to explain. I didn't care. When I finally walked back inside, she was still there. Her eyes were swollen, her face blotchy from crying. How long? I asked. She hesitated. And that was my answer. How long, Lily? My voice was quiet, but the force of it made her flinch. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years. 2 years of my life wasted on a lie. I didn't say another word, just turned around and started packing. She begged me to listen, to understand, to let her explain. But there was nothing to explain. By the time I left that night, I had already decided I was done. With her. With my brother. With everything that had once felt like home. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to disappear. I didn't go home that night. Not to my apartment, not to a friend's place. I just drove, the city blurring past me in streaks of neon and rain. My mind was blank, yet screaming all at once. When the weight of exhaustion finally hit me, I pulled into a motel on the outskirts of town. The kind of place where no one asks questions, where the sheets smell like bleach, and the walls are thin enough to hear someone arguing next door. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. My brother's smirk. Lily's tear-streaked face. The way they looked at each other, like they had something real, something worth destroying my life for. By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for anything. Not the apartment, not my relationship, not even the people I once called family. I was done. I had spent my whole life being the responsible one, the one who took the high road. But what had that ever gotten me? A fiancé in my brother's bed, and a family that would probably shrug it off because, of course, Eric couldn't do any wrong. But what I wasn't prepared for, what I hadn't anticipated, was just how easily my mother forgave them. I found out through my sister, Olivia, the only person in the family who had ever really had my back. She called me 2 days later, her voice hesitant. unsure if I even wanted to hear what she had to say. They had dinner at Mom and Dad's last night, she said softly. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. What? She sighed. Eric and Lily. Mom invited them over. She said that love happens in unexpected ways and that we should all just try to move past this. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she did. It's worse, Olivia said. She told Dad that maybe you weren't right for Lily after all. That maybe this was always meant to happen. I closed my eyes, my jaw locking so tightly it ached. They were sitting in your chair at the dinner table, Alex. Like nothing had happened. Like you never existed. I had been expecting betrayal from my brother. From Lily. But from my own mother? That was a wound I hadn't braced for. She had always favored Eric. That much had been clear since we were kids. I was the one who got lectures about responsibility, while Eric got excuses. I was the one who was pushed to work hard, while Eric was coddled through every failure. But this was a new low. That night, I stopped answering my mother's calls. I didn't respond to Eric's pathetic attempts to talk. And when Lily sent me an email asking if we could have closure, I deleted it without even reading past the subject line. I packed my bags. I had savings. A decent job offer from a firm in another state. It wasn't the dream job, but it was far away, and that's all I needed. But before I could leave, I got one last surprise. One that made everything even worse. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the call. My landlord. Hey, Alex, I just wanted to let you know that your brother and his, fiancée came by earlier, he said, sounding awkward. I stiffened. What? They had a copy of your lease agreement. Said they were planning to move in now that you'd be moving out. The air in my lungs vanished. They what? They said you were planning to leave town, so they might as well take over the lease. Said your mom was helping them sort things out. I had to sit down. Not only had they stolen my relationship, but now they were trying to take my home, too. My own mother had actually gone out of her way to make this easier for them. I should have been furious. But the exhaustion was too deep, too suffocating. I was done. I didn't respond. Didn't fight it. I simply finished packing, signed a lease termination, and left. No goodbyes. No explanations. I just disappeared. For the first time in my life, I was truly alone. But I had no idea that, in time, they would come looking for me. And when they did, it wouldn't be to apologize. I left the city without looking back. The drive to my new life was long and quiet, the highway stretching endlessly before me. I had always thought of moving away as an exciting adventure, something people did to chase dreams. But for me, it was an escape, an exile from everything that had defined my past. I settled in a small town 3 states over. Found a modest apartment, nothing fancy, just a place where no one knew my name. My new job wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and most importantly, it kept me busy. I threw myself into work, into rebuilding, into forgetting. Weeks turned into months. I made sure my number was changed, my account scrubbed clean, my presence erased from any ties to home. Olivia was the only one who still had a way to reach me, and even then, I made it clear I didn't want updates unless absolutely necessary. I wasn't sure if I was healing, but at least I was surviving. Then, 6 months later, the past found me again. It started with an email from an unknown sender. The subject line alone was enough to freeze my fingers over the keyboard. I hope you can forgive us someday. I clicked it before I could stop myself. The message was from my mother. Alex, I know you're still angry, and I understand. But it's time to let the past go. Your brother and Lily are going through a difficult time, and we need to come together as a family. You've always been the strong one, and we need your strength now more than ever. Please, come home. I stared at the words, my stomach twisting. Difficult time? I had no intention of replying, but curiosity gnawed at me. I called Olivia. What the hell is Mom talking about? I asked the moment she picked up. She let out a sigh. It finally caught up to them. A sick kind of satisfaction curled in my chest, but I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. Lily cheated on him, Olivia said flatly. I almost laughed. With who? Eric's best friend. This time I did laugh. A hollow, bitter sound. Wow, didn't see that one coming. She's pregnant, Olivia added. The laughter died in my throat. Please tell me you're joking. Nope. A pause. And it's not Eric's kid. I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. After everything he had done, after he had justified his betrayal by calling it fate, by calling it love, he had ended up in the exact same position I had been in. Poetic, I muttered. It gets worse. I raised an eyebrow. Worse than that. Mom is blaming you for this. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear, stared at it like it had just spoken in a different language, and then put it back. Excuse me. She says if you had just forgiven them and come back, none of this would have happened. That Eric wouldn't have felt abandoned, and Lily wouldn't have acted out. I felt something inside me crack. Whether it was anger or disbelief, I wasn't sure. They betrayed me, I said slowly. And I'm supposed to feel bad that their relationship was built on the same lies they used to destroy mine? Apparently. I shook my head. I didn't know what was worse. The fact that my mother had actually tried to twist reality into making this my fault, or the fact that Eric probably believed it. Let me guess, I said. She wants me to come home? Of course. She thinks if you step up and support Eric, it'll fix everything. The absurdity of it all was suffocating. The idea that I was supposed to be the one to come back and comfort the brother who had stabbed me in the back. I let out a slow breath, the weight of it pressing down on my ribs. Tell her I said no. I already did. Good. There was a beat of silence. Then Olivia spoke again, her voice softer. You don't have to come back, Alex. But if you ever decide you want to, just know that not all of us picked their side. I closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I believed her. But it didn't matter. Because no matter what they said, no matter what had happened to Eric and Lily, I was never going back. The email from my mother was easy to ignore. The follow-up messages, the voicemails Olivia forwarded me, those I deleted without a second thought. But the past, no matter how hard I tried to leave it behind, wasn't done with me yet. A month after the email, I got an unexpected visitor. I was coming back from work, tired, my mind on nothing but the takeout I had picked up for dinner, when I saw a figure standing by my apartment door. At first, I thought it was a neighbor or maybe someone who had the wrong address. Then he turned. Eric. For a second, I thought I was seeing a ghost. He looked wrecked, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His once pristine clothes were wrinkled, his hair a mess, and there were dark circles under his eyes so deep they looked like bruises. I should have felt something, anger, pity, even curiosity. But all I felt was cold. How the hell did you find me? I asked, my voice flat. He swallowed hard. Mom. Of course. I clenched my jaw, already stepping past him to unlock my door. Leave. Alex, please. I swung the door open but didn't step inside. I wasn't about to let him into my home, into the new life I had built far away from him. I turned back, arms crossed. You have 10 seconds to say whatever you came here to say. He hesitated, his fingers twitching at his sides like he wanted to reach for something. Maybe my forgiveness, maybe an excuse. I messed up, he said finally. I laughed, shaking my head. No, you didn't mess up, Eric. You made a choice. For years. A choice that destroyed everything. I know. His voice was quiet, and for the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't arrogance or entitlement. It was something closer to desperation. She left me, he admitted. Lily, she took everything. Moved in with that guy. The baby's his. She's not even trying to fight it. I should have felt something. Satisfaction, maybe. Justified anger. But all I felt was emptiness. And Eric's breath came out shaky. I have nothing, Alex. No job, no place to stay. I just wanted to talk to you. To try and what? My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Rebuild our brotherly bond. You threw that away the moment you climbed into my bed with my fiancée. He flinched. No. I stepped forward, closing the space between us. You don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to come here, now that your world is falling apart, and expect me to fix it. That's what you do, isn't it? You make a mess, and someone else cleans it up. Eric was silent. I shook my head. I should thank you, actually. His brows furrowed. What? You and Lily? You did me a favor. I gestured around. Because I'm free now. Free from you, from her, from the entire toxic circus that was our family. And I'll tell you this. If you think for 1 second that I'd ever go back, that I'd ever forgive you, then you're more delusional than I thought. His face crumpled. Alex, I'm sorry. No, you're not, I said coldly. You're just alone. He had no response to that. I stepped inside my apartment, and before he could say another word, I shut the door in his face. He knocked once, twice, then silence. I didn't look out the peephole to see if he had left. I didn't care. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the forgotten son, the discarded brother, the responsible one who always had to be strong. For the first time, I felt free. For a while, things were quiet again. I half expected Eric to come back, to try again with more pathetic excuses. But he didn't. Whatever he had wanted from me, I had shut it down hard enough that even he understood there was no coming back. Months passed, and life started feeling normal again. I kept working, started going to the gym more. Even let Olivia convince me to go on a few dates. Not that anything serious ever came of it. I was still too wary, too guarded, but at least I was trying. Then, out of nowhere, my mother reached out again. This time, she wasn't just asking me to come home. She was begging. It started with a voicemail. I nearly ignored it, but something in her tone was different this time. It wasn't the fake, guilt-tripping manipulation I had come to expect from her. She sounded afraid. I played it back. Alex, it's your mother. Please, call me back. I know you don't want to hear from me, but it's important. It's about your father. He's in trouble. I frowned. Dad. I debated whether I should even care. He had been complicit in everything, a passive bystander who had let my mother orchestrate the worst betrayal of my life. He hadn't fought for me, hadn't spoken up, hadn't done anything. But something about my mother's voice nagged at me. So I called Olivia. She picked up on the first ring. You saw Mom's message, didn't you? What's going on? She sighed. It's bad, Alex. Dad's in serious debt. Turns out Mom was taking out credit cards in his name for years to cover for Eric and all his failures. She maxed everything out. Loans, mortgages, you name it. I blinked. She what? She lied about everything. The house. Gone. Foreclosed. Dad's been trying to fight it, but there's nothing left. She drained everything. I sat back in my chair, running a hand down my face. Jesus. Dad finally left her. That made me pause. He left her? Olivia let out a humorless laugh. Yeah. Walked out 2 weeks ago when he found out she had borrowed money against his retirement fund without telling him. He's staying with Aunt Rose now, but... Alex, he's lost everything. And Mom. She hesitated. Mom is desperate. She's trying to reach you because she thinks you'll come back and save us. I barked out a laugh. Are you kidding me? I wish I was. My head was spinning. All those years, my mother had spent so much energy making sure Eric never had to face consequences. She had built her entire world around propping him up, making sure he never had to struggle, never had to work for anything. And now, it had destroyed her. And Dad, he had let it happen. He had watched her funnel money into Eric's dreams, into the wedding that never should have happened, into a life that she wanted for her golden child. And now, he had nothing to show for it. I didn't feel sorry for them. Not in the way they probably wanted me to. But I did feel something. Relief. Because after all the ways they had tried to make me feel like the villain, after all the times they had told me I was the one being selfish, karma had finally arrived at their doorstep. You're not going back, are you? Olivia asked softly. No. I said without hesitation. Good, she murmured. Because neither am I. I smiled. Looks like we're the only sane ones left. She laughed, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel weighed down by grief. Guess so. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. What about Eric? She snorted. He's still at Mom's. Well, was. She got evicted, so now he's crashing with some friends. He lost his job, by the way. Not that it was much of a job to begin with, but yeah, he's spiraling. Drinks too much, burns through whatever money he can mooch off people. Classic Eric. I wasn't surprised. Mom still thinks you're going to come back, Olivia continued. She thinks this is just a phase. That one day, you'll realize you can't just abandon your family. I smirked. She doesn't realize I already did. Yeah. Olivia's voice was quiet. She never thought this day would come. That we'd both be done with her. She brought it on herself, I said simply. A beat of silence passed between us. Then Olivia cleared her throat. By the way, I'm getting married. I blinked. Wait, what? She laughed softly. Yeah, it's happening in a few months. Small ceremony, nothing huge. Wow. A real smile stretched across my face. That's amazing, Liv. Congratulations. Thanks. She hesitated. I'd really love for you to be there. Something in my chest tightened. I won't invite Mom or Eric, she added quickly. Or Dad, unless he actually starts making amends. It's your choice, Alex. But I don't want to start this next chapter of my life without you in it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outcast, like a disposable part of the family. I felt wanted. I'll be there. I said. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The wedding was in late September, held at a small vineyard just outside of town. Olivia kept her word. No mom, no Eric, no dad. Just a handful of close friends, her fiancé's family, and me. I won't lie, it felt strange at first. Being around people who actually wanted me there. People who weren't trying to guilt me, manipulate me, or twist my emotions into something they could use against me. But as I sat there, watching my sister exchange vows, something inside me settled. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the past to catch up to me. I was just living. After the ceremony, I stood off to the side, nursing a drink and enjoying the fresh air when Olivia found me. She nudged my arm. "You okay?" I let out a breath. "Yeah, I think I actually am." She smiled, then hesitated. "I have something for you." I raised an eyebrow as she pulled a folded letter from her dress pocket. "Dad gave it to me last week," she said. "He told me to give it to you if you came." I stared at the letter in her hands, my chest tightening. For a long moment, I debated not taking it, letting it sit there between us, a relic of a past I had no desire to revisit. But then, slowly, I reached for it. "I don't expect you to forgive him," Olivia said quietly. "But he's trying, Alex. In his own way." I didn't answer. Later that night, when the wedding was over and I was back in my hotel room, I unfolded the letter. "Alex, I don't know if you'll ever read this, and I don't know if you'll ever believe me when I say this, but I'm sorry. I should have stood up to her. I should have protected you. I let her control everything for too long, and by the time I realized how much damage she had done, it was too late. You were always the strong one, the responsible one, and I let you carry burdens that were never meant to be yours. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I need you to know that I regret it. Every single day. And if there's ever a day when you feel like giving me another chance, I'll be here. Dad." I sat there for a long time, staring at the words. I didn't cry. I didn't feel an overwhelming surge of emotions, but I did feel something I hadn't expected. Closure. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it away. I wasn't ready to forgive him. Maybe I never would be. But for the first time in years, I felt like I had a choice. And that was enough.